Namaste. Two very senior and distinguished educationists of our times, Professor Majumdar and Dr. Vishwanathan had just spoken about and touched upon very important issues. I have a very difficult task to emulate. I will try to do justice to the time given to me. Before I start my presentation, if Bharat has to attain its past glory, then we cannot do it without reinvigorating and re-emerging in the field of education, especially in technical education. So the topic for my presentation today is balancing quality, affordability, economic viability in higher education systems, higher educational institutions in India, Bharat. Next, please. The three important aspects, affordability, viability, and quality. These are the key issues with which we all are grappling in the field of technical education and higher education. India is at the crossroads, and we must now decide and take the pragmatic and the right path to attain these objectives, to attain the excellence in the field of technical education. Next, please. Affordability or accessibility. Before coming to that, how the three important ingredients which we, if you look at any system, as an engineer, the inputs are the students, and the educational institutions or educational framework which is available operates upon them, and we get the graduates or postgraduate students, and then the feedback in the form of their credentials and their the skill based what kind of skills we are providing. Next, please. What kind of skills we are providing, we get the output. So Q out is basically G, the proportionality constant, Q in, and MFI. MFI is very important here. M is basically quality, qualification, and intent of management. Depends on quality, qualification, and intent of management. In my opinion, M is a very important multiplier. If you have Q input good, then there is no problem. Output would definitely be very good. Look at the IITs. You get the students out of 10 or 11 lakh students appear, and you choose hardly 10,000, 7,000 students for graduation. So even if the multiplier effect is not there, they are a good input, and the output has to be good. So they would be good. Rather, the policymakers must realize that the self-financing institutions are working in a much more constrained environment than the government institutions. They do not get any budgetary support. Their fees is fixed by the state fee committees, and they have to perform at, in competition with the market forces. The days have gone when the seats were less and the students were, in large numbers. So they could do whatever they wanted to do. Now any self-enlightened management have to provide a good infrastructure, good faculty, and good skill-based students, so that they can find their place in the society and earn their livelihood along with other things. So next, please. Coming back to the three important topics, the points for which I would be speaking on, the affordability or accessibility. If you look at briefly the kind of education system which we have now, as Dr. Vishwanathan has already said, that percentage of students going for higher education is hardly 13%, whereas the same is varying between 28% to 30%. So there is a still large scope of increasing the enrollment in the field of higher education. Number of higher education institutions in the country has increased from about 30 universities and 595 colleges in 1950-51 to about 700 universities and 335,000 colleges, 700 to 800 universities, depending on which year you are taking. Next, please. This is the growth of colleges, these seats, etc. Next, please. Next. Just to give you a glimpse, all these things. I would be speaking on some important. If you look at this, the kind of basically from 2000 to 2010, we have had already almost exponential growth of seats, and this is basically engineering seats. So this gives you a glimpse of, the state universities, private universities, central universities, deemed universities and all that. Next, please. Now, this, if you look at, I am focusing on engineering students. Look at 2006 and 7 to 2013, 14. These are the colleges. All colleges are basically increasing in exponential number, and more highly unregulated growth has taken place between 2007 to 2011, and it has resulted in lopsided development and opening of colleges, which is national wastage. In fact, the mindless application of rules and regulations, simply straight jacket evaluation methodologies which have been adopted, and giving licenses to the kind of licenses or approvals or recognitions to the colleges, it's a sheer wastage of national resources. It should have been done in a more prudent manner. Rather than allowing institutions of any background, the AICTE, which is a regulatory body for opening institutions, engineering colleges, they have simple, checklist. Whosoever, they have nowhere they have the quality, aspect for this, that, what are the kind of promoters, whether the promoter has any intent of running a good institution, or whether the promoter has any kind of educational background, which in my opinion is of extremely importance, extremely important. Next, please. Next. It is basically growth of, which I already said, the growth of technical institutions in the country. Next. So, if we look at the initiatives by the government of Bharat and state governments, to increase the accessibility or affordability, to make it accessible to more people, what has been done? If you just pause for a moment and look back, then we find that the central universities have been opened, central institutions have been created, state universities have been created, state government institutions have come up. Till now, we do not have any framework for private central universities. There is no parliamentary act by which we can, through which we can have the central private universities. We can have deemed universities, but deemed universities are not, full universities. They are given deemed to be status. And then, back. Then the framework for private universities have been created. And one very important aspect, long back in earlier education policy, 1986 and 83, it was decided that the government should concentrate on primary and secondary education, and the private education providers should be allowed to develop institutions in the field of higher education. It was a very conscious decision. But still we have not, as Dr. Vishwanathan has said, that still there is a suspicion between the two stakeholders, the government and the private education providers. When the government has already decided that the private self-financing institutions should come in the field of technical education or higher education, then we should respect them. We should provide a regulatory framework. We should, already if you look at the technical education, there is a lot of market forces which have already equalized, now no institution cannot survive, no institution can survive who is not providing good quality education. Rather, there is a lot of national wastage, national resource wastage is taking place, which in my opinion is because of mindless application of rules and regulations by the regulatory bodies in this country. Next. I have to go a little faster. What needs to be done is that to make it highly accessible. This is the most important point, If we have to have paradigm shift in the field of technical education and higher education, we must make loans easily available, easily accessible to all students. When the government can provide thousands of crores of loans to big private houses on interest rate of 3% or 4% or 5%, why can't we provide education loans to the students, whosoever gets admission in approved college or approved university, on minimal interest rate of 3%, 2% or no, without any interest. If it happens, I'm sure that the enrollment will definitely be increased. Even today, with all accessibility, the seats are available, the colleges are there, but students are not able to study because they do not have funds. Still 13%, 14% interest rate is charged from the students to, on loans. You got to provide collaterals and other securities. It is the most important point. It is the most, if the government, as our Honorable Prime Minister has said, that we require speed, skill, and scale. These are the kind of things which we need to do. We must make loans or funds available to the students. Whosoever want to study, the loans must be available, and only after the students become employed or he or she gets job, they should be asked to repay back the loan. Next, please. Next, please. Economic viability can be achieved by balancing nobility of cause and sustainability of ventures. What are the major constraints? Constraints are lack of resources. Of course, there is a limited kitty. The government has already decided to invest in the primary and secondary education, and rightly so. Already left this field for higher education to the private investors and private education providers. There is a complex, stereotyped, outdated, multiple rules and regulations framed for establishing technical colleges, as Dr. Vishwanathan and Professor Majumdar has said. There are a large number of councils. There is a AICT, MCI, Nursing Council, Dental Council, Pharmacy Council, Bar Council, and so many councils of the central government and the state governments and the universities. There are large number of committees which inspects one college, for the same kind of objectives, same kind of, issues. Then lack of quality of MFI, that is management, faculty, and infrastructure. The managements are generally it is said that there is a very difficult combination of Saraswati and Lakshmi. So those who have money many of them do not have the right intent or right kind of background to establish institutions. So it is, in my opinion, is the most important multiplier is MFI. Then negligible industry engagements with institutions. Next, please. Next. Ways to improve viability. Basically, better students' input, which can be done at the improving the school education, declaration of education industry, so that easy finances can be provided. Comprehensive industry institute engagement, better application of NTMIA system to, as I said, that the mindless application of rules, regulations of frame would not be in the right interest. Next, please. Quality.
Time is up.
Just 1 minute. Quality, there is a lot to be done on the quality aspect, like employability of graduates. It has to increase in skill transfer, student input, competence of promoters, clustered growth of institutions. These are the issues which are hindering the quality. Next, please. Which should be more meaningful, more transparent, and more acceptable. What to do is that these are the issues. Basically, faculty development. Faculty development, what we look at now, right, what AICT is doing, 100 faculty development program where 1,000 teachers would be, quality would be improved. What we require is at least 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs kind of improvement. It has to be speed, scale, and skill. All these things needs to be taken. Next, please. Conclusion. All the three parameters, affordability, viability, and quality, are interlinked and interdependent, as I have already said. And the solution lies in the holistic approach. And I hope that with the change of the new government, new thinking by the Honorable HRD Minister and our Prime Minister, the better days to come, the better days would be here. Thank you very much.